Belarus is becoming a nuclear country. The year 2025 turned out to be filled with controversial wars. Throughout the year, there were regular discussions in the public sphere about possible peace talks, compromises, solutions, and attempts to find common ground between the conflicting parties. However, the issue of nuclear weapons did not go away or disappear. It would periodically fade into the background, only to return to the agenda again. Against this backdrop, many experts and politicians stated that 2026 could become a breakthrough year from the perspective of global resolution and the stabilization of the international situation. However, the very first hours of the new year showed that expectations and reality can differ significantly. If we ask the question, how many days? In 2026, the world's media and officials did not talk about nuclear weapons. Simply, 0 days. Already on January 1st, statements were made in Belarus about joint work on a nuclear warhead. These reports mentioned Russia and China, which immediately drew attention to the topic and sparked a new wave of discussions. What exactly is being discussed, which systems might be involved, and how likely is the practical use of nuclear weapons? Let's take a closer look together. Hello everyone, my name is Anastasiia Husarieva. While you're liking, subscribing to our channel, and sharing your thoughts as usual, I'll try to explain to you step by step what's happening. So let's get started. The central topic of discussion was the Belarusian Polonez operational tactical missile system, which you can now see on your screens. According to Gennady Lepeshko, head of the National Security Commission of the House of Representatives of the National Assembly of Belarus, this system can be equipped with a nuclear warhead. In an interview with Sputnik Belarus, he stated that Russian specialists are working on the relevant solutions. These words became yet another confirmation that the issue of nuclear weapons in Belarus is being considered not in theory but in practice. Lepeshko also reported that during the Zapad exercises, the procedure for using nuclear weapons was practiced. At the same time, it was not about abstract concepts but about specific aviation and missile systems that could potentially serve as carriers of nuclear warheads. Among such systems, developments carried out jointly by Russia and Belarus were mentioned, including the possibility of using nuclear weapons with the Polonez missile system. The Polonez missile system itself, which we are discussing, has a completely clear origin. It is essentially the Chinese multifunctional missile system GATS, adapted to the Belarusian wheel chassis MZKT 7930 Astrolog. The Polonez was first publicly demonstrated in 2015 in Minsk at a military parade. Just a year later, the system completed state trials and was officially adopted into service by the armed forces of the Republic of Belarus. According to the stated tactical and technical specifications, the Polonez uses 301 mm caliber missiles. The firing range depends on the type of ammunition used. The A-200 missile is capable of striking targets at a distance of up to 200 kilometers, while the A-300 missile can reach targets at a distance of up to 290 kilometers. Guidance is carried out using an inertial system with GPS correction. The stated firing accuracy, expressed as the circular error probable according to various sources, ranges from 15 to 30 meters. The system is mounted on an MZKT 7930 chassis and is in service with the 336th Rocket Artillery Brigade in Osipovichi. In addition to Belarus, Azerbaijan became an operator of these systems in 2018. Long before the current statements, representatives of the Belarusian leadership had already resorted to harsh rhetoric related to the Polonez systems. In 2022, Alexander Lukashenko publicly threatened to launch missile strikes on Kyiv. He stated that decision-making centers are in the crosshairs, emphasizing that he does not intend to consider who exactly is in the buildings that may become targets. In 2021, the head of the Belarusian State Military-Industrial Committee, Dmitry Pantus, announced the creation of their own missile for the Polonez system, now with an increased range of up to 300 kilometers. As of spring 2022, this missile was in the testing phase. In November 2023, it was adopted into service as part of the modernized Polonez M system. Prior to this, in September 2023, Lukashenko stated that Belarus was using Russian technologies to create a serious missile. He noted that previously the work had been carried out jointly with China. In addition to the Polonez, Belarus also has other missile systems. At the beginning of 2023, the Belarusian military began operating Iskander M operational tactical missile systems. Their range can reach up to 500 kilometers. On official portals and resources, both the Iskander M and Iskander K were recorded in official materials of the Belarusian Ministry of Defense. Previously, personnel underwent training in Russia, and on February 24, 2023, a video was published featuring a missile unit based on these systems. The Belarusian Hajun community, in turn, drew attention to the details of the published video materials. In particular, part of the launcher's cabins was blurred out. It was later revealed that this was done to conceal red stars, which may indicate that these systems are being used by Russian forces to launch missile strikes on Ukrainian territory. Nuclear warheads with a declared yield of up to 50 kilotons have already been created in Russia for the Iskander systems. It is likely these very capabilities that were being referred to in the context of statements about practicing nuclear weapon deployment procedures during the Zapad exercises. It is also important to take the Chinese factor into account in this situation. In 2023, China unveiled a modernized version of the Polonez system. This system is also present on the territory of Belarus. It should be clarified that the AR-3 is a development of the AR-2 system, which served as the basis for the Belarusian Polonez. Currently, in addition to Belarus, AR-2 systems are also in service with Azerbaijan and Ethiopia, despite the fact that the first presentation of this system took place back in 2015. China's export policy in the field of armaments is distinguished by its focus specifically on geopolitical interests. The commercial aspect often takes a back seat. Against this backdrop, the attempt to repackage the AR-3 by means of a new chassis looks somewhat unusual, since the system does not gain any additional combat capabilities, and the need for classic marketing techniques is minimal for China. Within expert circles and in unofficial conversations, there is a recurring theory about the possible use of Belarusian Polonez systems by Russian forces for strikes against Ukraine. Kremlin propagandists sometimes justify such scenarios by citing the need to counter HIMARS systems, for example. As a counter-argument, some claim that the Chinese origin of the A-200 and M-20 missiles supposedly limits the possibility of their use without consent from Beijing. However, practice shows that China does not always actively intervene in such situations. A telling example is Ethiopia, where in 2020, during the conflict with the Tigray Liberation Forces, AR-2 systems fell into the hands of insurgents. These systems were used to launch M-20 ballistic missiles and guided A-200s, including strikes on air bases, and even on Addis Ababa. Despite the effective loss of its missile shield, Ethiopia's relations with China did not deteriorate. Moreover, as recently as 2021, government forces received Chinese drones, Wing-Lung drones with a full set of weapon control systems. Perhaps such restraint can be explained by China's geopolitical interests in the Horn of Africa region. However, this example shows that Beijing is capable of responding passively when its missile technologies fall into the hands of third parties. A similar approach cannot be ruled out in the case of Belarus either. And it should be added here that in 2024, it was reported that Belarusian military personnel conducted launches with the Polonez system at one of the training grounds in Russia. It was stated that the launches were carried out at maximum range in order to verify the declared specifications. In the video footage, transport and launch containers of different sizes could be seen, which may indicate the use of various types of missiles. Polish analysts suggested that the firing could have been conducted directly at a range of up to 300 kilometers. This matches the specifications of the Polonez M system, whose appearance was announced by Lukashenko regime propagandists as early as the end of 2023. Additionally, attention was drawn to the fact that exercises involving the Polonez systems were demonstratively conducted near the border with Poland. And if the information about the increased firing range is accurate, this could mean that Belarus has received Chinese ballistic missiles, M-20s with a range of up to 280 to 300 kilometers. The standard missile for the Polonez remains the Chinese-made A-200, with a range from 50 to 200 kilometers and a launch weight of about 750 kilograms. The Belarusian side claims that the system is capable of firing a salvo of 8 missiles in 50 seconds. At the same time, preparation for firing takes at least 8 minutes. Against this backdrop, the topic of nuclear armament in Belarus continues to develop steadily. In August 2025, the State Secretary of the Security Council of Belarus, Alexander Volfovich, stated that the republic is studying the possibility of equipping missile systems of this type, the Polonez, with nuclear warheads. He emphasized the high accuracy of the system and the need to further develop it to carry out such tasks. The starting point for these processes was February 2022, when, following a referendum, Belarus renounced its non-nuclear status. Since then, statements about the deployment of nuclear weapons, the construction of storage facilities, and the preparation of corresponding delivery systems have regularly appeared in the information space. At the end of 2024, Alexander Lukashenko stated that Belarus possesses tactical nuclear weapons numbering more than just a few dozen warheads. These words were spoken against the backdrop of reports about the Oreshnik missile and its appearance in Minsk. A 6-axle chassis, which may be intended specifically for its deployment, was also spotted. That's all for today, friends. Thank you for being with us. I hope you learned a little more today. You can share your impressions of this topic. Share your thoughts and comments under this video, give it a like, and we'll see you in the next broadcasts. My name is Anastasiia Husarieva. Take care of yourselves, wash your hands with soap. Goodbye, everyone.